Say the word cat out loud. Feel what your mouth does. Feel the vowel in the middle, that open, flat, front-of-the-mouth sound that sits between the A in father and the E in bed. Not quite one, not quite the other. A sound that English uses constantly in hundreds of the most common words in the language. Cat, hat, bat, man, hand, lamp, glad. That sound. The sound you make dozens of times in every conversation without thinking about it. Now try to write it down. Not the word, the sound, just the vowel. Which letter is it? A. But the A in father is a different sound entirely. The A in fate is different again. The A in about is different yet again. The letter A represents at least 4 distinct vowel sounds in English, and the sound in cat is just one of them, forced to share a letter with sounds it has nothing in common with. The sound has no letter of its own. It borrows. It squats in the letter A alongside other sounds that don't resemble it, distinguished only by context, by the letters around it, by the reader's learned intuition about which of the several possible A sounds this particular A is supposed to represent. And it used to have its own letter. A letter so perfectly designed for the sound it represented that the sound was named after the letter. The letter was called ash. It looked like this. A. A fusion of A and E, sitting between the two letters whose sounds it sat between, representing with visual precision the exact phonetic space it occupied. Not A, not E, the sound between them. The 6th vowel, the vowel that English used for over 700 years and that was removed from the alphabet during the same period when every other element of the language was being standardized, simplified, and brought under institutional control. But ash wasn't the only vowel casualty. And the deeper I went, the more I found that the story of English vowel reduction is a story with 2 victims. One was murdered, the other was demoted. And both operations happened during the same period for the same reasons, with consequences that every English speaker alive today lives inside without knowing anything was taken. The second victim is in your alphabet right now. Hiding in plain sight, classified as something it isn't, introduced to every child in the English-speaking world with a word that tells you everything you need to know about how thoroughly its identity has been suppressed. Sometimes A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. This raises a simple but critical question. Why sometimes? What does sometimes mean when applied to a letter of the alphabet? Either a letter represents a vowel sound or it doesn't. The letter E doesn't come with a disclaimer. The letter I isn't introduced as occasionally a vowel. Only Y carries the qualifier. Only Y is taught to every child as conditional, provisional, not quite a full member of the vowel family, a guest pass rather than a permanent resident. And the deeper I went, the more that sometimes revealed itself as one of the most effective pieces of linguistic suppression I've ever encountered. Because Y isn't sometimes a vowel. Y is almost always a vowel. In the vast majority of the words where it appears, Y functions as a vowel. Gym, myth, rhythm, mystery, hymn, lynx, syrup, crystal, system, crypt, happy, baby, carry, silly, city, every. In many of these words, Y isn't substituting for another vowel. It is the vowel, the only vowel. Remove the Y from gym and you have no vowel at all. The word becomes unpronounceable. The syllable collapses. Y isn't sometimes doing vowel work. Y is almost always doing vowel work. The sometimes is a lie. The silence was deafening, as if they were following instructions they didn't fully understand. Start with what Y actually was, because Y didn't arrive in the English alphabet as a consonant, it arrived as a vowel. Specifically, it was borrowed from the Greek letter upsilon to represent a specific vowel sound that Latin didn't have a letter for. A rounded front vowel. The sound that French still writes as U in words like loon. The sound that German writes as U in words like Uber. a distinct, specific vowel sound that was common in Old English and that Y was imported specifically to represent. Go read Old English texts. Y appears as a vowel throughout, not occasionally, constantly. Signing, the word that became king. First, the word that became first. Hill, the word that became hill. Misel, the word that became much. In each of these words, Y represents a specific vowel sound, not the consonant Y of yes, not the long I of cry. A rounded front vowel that English speakers produced every day and that the letter Y was placed in the alphabet specifically to represent. And then the sound disappeared. During the Great Vowel Shift, the massive reorganization of English pronunciation that occurred between roughly 1400 and 1700, the rounded front vowel that Y had represented merged with other vowel sounds. The distinct sound was lost, but the letter remained, stranded in the alphabet. Its original function erased, its vowel identity demoted, reclassified as a consonant that sometimes does vowel work when the truth is that it was a vowel that sometimes does consonant work. The Y in yes is the exception. The Y in Jim is the original function. The history was inverted, the identity was reversed, and every child who learns the alphabet is taught the inversion as if it were the natural order. Now layer the two deletions together. Because Ash and Y aren't separate stories, they're the same story. Two vowel letters, both functional, both representing distinct sounds, both essential to the accurate representation of English pronunciation, reduced during the same historical period by the same institutional forces. Ash was deleted outright, removed from the alphabet entirely. The sound it represented, the vowel in cat, was reassigned to the letter A, which was already carrying multiple phonetic values. The letter A became overloaded. The same letter now represented the vowel in cat, the vowel in father, the vowel in fate, and the vowel in about. 4 distinct sounds, 1 letter. The reader could no longer determine pronunciation from spelling. The writing system became ambiguous where it had been precise. Y was demoted. Not removed, but reclassified. Stripped of its primary identity as a vowel and rebranded as a consonant with occasional vowel function. The sound it originally represented disappeared from the language, but Y continued to serve as a vowel in hundreds of words where no other vowel existed. Its vowel function wasn't reduced. Its vowel classification was reduced. The letter kept doing vowel work. The alphabet stopped acknowledging it. The deeper I went into the history of these two reductions, the more I found that they were symptoms of the same underlying cause. The printing press, the standardization of English by an industry that needed fewer characters, simpler typefaces, and a fixed alphabet that could be mass-produced across Europe using letter sets designed for Latin-based languages. The continental typefaces that English printers imported didn't include Ash. The character was unique to English and the closely related Scandinavian languages. Including it would have required custom type cutting. Custom type cutting cost money. Ash was dropped to save money. The vowel that represented one of the most common sounds in the language was sacrificed to the economics of the printing industry. Y's demotion followed a similar logic, but operated through classification rather than deletion. The Latin alphabet, which was the model for the standardized English alphabet, classified Y as a consonant. When English was standardized on the Latin model, Y was reclassified to match the model rather than the reality. The fact that Y functioned as a vowel in the majority of its appearances in English was subordinated to the fact that Latin treated it as a consonant. The model won. The language lost. The pattern repeats with unsettling precision across every aspect of English standardization. Because the printing press didn't just standardize the alphabet, it standardized English spelling at a specific moment in the history of English pronunciation. Spelling was largely fixed in the 1400s and 1500s. Pronunciation continued to change. The great vowel shift, which transformed the pronunciation of every long vowel in the language, occurred after spelling had been standardized. The result is that modern English spelling represents not modern pronunciation, but the pronunciation of 500 years ago, filtered through an alphabet that was already missing the letters it needed. And the consequences are measurable. English has among the highest rates of dyslexia diagnosis in the world. Not because English speakers have different brains, because English has a different writing system. A system so disconnected from pronunciation that learning to read English requires years of memorization that learning to read Finnish or Italian or Swahili does not. Go look at the research on orthographic transparency and reading acquisition. Languages with transparent writing systems, where each letter represents one sound and each sound is represented by one letter, produce fluent readers within months. Languages with opaque writing systems, where letters represent multiple sounds and sounds are represented by multiple letters, produce fluent readers within years. English is among the most opaque writing systems in the world, and the opacity traces directly to deletions and demotions like ash and y. Each reduction removed a one-to-one correspondence between letter and sound. Each removal forced remaining letters to carry additional phonetic loads. Each overloading made the system harder to decode. And the cumulative effect is a writing system that generates a multi-billion-dollar remediation industry to compensate for the precision that was removed 4 centuries ago. Here's where the two stories converge into a single pattern. Because the deletion of ash and the demotion of y didn't just affect spelling, they affected the English speaker's conscious awareness of the sounds in their own language. Every letter in an alphabet is a category, a cognitive container. When you have a letter for a sound, you have a category for that sound. You can think about the sound independently. You can distinguish it from other sounds because it has its own symbol. The letter doesn't just represent the sound. It teaches you that the sound exists as a distinct entity. When ash was deleted, the sound it represented lost its category. English speakers still produce the ash sound every time they say cat, but they don't know they're producing a distinct vowel. They think they're saying a. The phonemic awareness of the distinction has been degraded, not eliminated, degraded. The sound is there. The awareness of the sound as a distinct element is reduced. When y was demoted, the category was blurred differently. Y still exists. The letter is there, but its identity has been scrambled. Children learn it as a consonant. They learn its vowel function as an exception. The cognitive category for y is consonant with an asterisk rather than vowel. The letter does vowel work in the majority of its appearances, but the speaker's mental model classifies it otherwise. The map doesn't match the territory, and the speaker navigates the territory using the wrong map. The deeper I went into the psycholinguistic research, the more I found that the number of vowel letters in an alphabet directly affects speakers' phonemic discrimination. Speakers of languages with more vowel letters hear more vowel distinctions. Speakers of languages with fewer vowel letters hear fewer. The alphabet trains the ear. 5 acknowledged vowels produce speakers who consciously discriminate 5 vowel categories, even though English contains over 14 distinct vowel sounds. The gap between 5 letters and 14 sounds is filled not by awareness, but by ambiguity, by guessing, by the learned intuition that English speakers develop over years of exposure and that speakers of transparent languages never need to develop because their alphabets do the work for them. 14 vowel sounds, 5½ letters, the half being y, the vowel that the alphabet acknowledges only sometimes. The writing system gives English speakers 5 cognitive containers for 14 distinct sounds. And then the education system wonders why English-speaking children struggle with phonemic awareness, why reading acquisition takes years instead of months, why dyslexia rates are higher in English than in almost any other language. The answer is in the alphabet, in the deletions, in the demotions, in the decisions made by printers in the 1400s and grammarians in the 1600s that reduced the vowel inventory of the writing system below the threshold required for transparent sound-to-letter mapping. The sounds are in the mouth, the letters are not on the page, and the gap between the two is the space where reading difficulty lives. I'm not telling you to resurrect the ash character and promote Y to full vowel status tomorrow. I'm telling you that the English alphabet once had more vowel letters, that ash was deleted for economic reasons, that Y was demoted for classificatory reasons, that neither deletion was based on linguistic analysis of what the language needed, that both deletions degraded the precision of the writing system, that the degraded precision produces measurable consequences in reading acquisition, phonemic awareness, and the diagnosis of learning disabilities, that the consequences generate industries, that the industries depend on the continued opacity of a writing system that was made opaque by decisions the industries never question. I'm asking why a sound that English speakers produce thousands of times daily has no letter of its own. I'm asking why a letter that functions as a vowel in the majority of its appearances is taught to every child as a consonant. I'm asking why the resulting opacity of English spelling is treated as a feature of the language rather than a consequence of decisions made by printers and grammarians centuries ago. I'm asking why children spend years learning to decode a writing system that was made unnecessarily difficult by the deletion of one vowel letter and the demotion of another. I'm asking what English would look like if ash had survived and Y had kept its identity. If every vowel sound in the language still had its own letter, if the alphabet still matched the mouth, if the writing system still did what writing systems are supposed to do, represent the spoken language with enough precision that the reader can hear the word by seeing it, without guessing, without memorizing, without years of institutional instruction to bridge a gap that 2 acts of vowel reduction helped to create. Go say cat one more time. Feel the vowel with no letter. Now say Jim. Feel the vowel whose letter was told it was only sometimes what it actually is. 2 sounds, 2 missing identities, 2 holes in the alphabet that every English speaker talks through every day without knowing anything was taken.